What up? It's a Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer, and welcome to episode number 13 with coaches Ivan Keene and Lorenzo Smith. I appreciate you guys jumping on. I know you've both listened to a lot of the podcasts leading up to this, and I wanted to touch mostly on this podcast with the grassroots. Both of you guys are heavily involved with that. Lorenzo, obviously, you're the main guy over at Future, and then I've had the opportunity to watch Ivan over there work with the kids. You guys do a phenomenal job. So again, I thank you both for jumping on and just helping San Antonio basketball. Let's get started with just kind of some intros and how you got involved. Ivan, you've obviously been around a lot longer, and we'll dive into your markers later in the podcast. And then Lorenzo, you can go on the back end. But first question for you, Ivan, is how did you get involved coaching in San Antonio? And just kind of give everybody a background from where it started for you here.
Mark, I started really when I got here, it being a military guy back in 1998 when I got here. For me, I was looking at San Antonio as an excellent opportunity because it's a big city. I'm from a small city in Virginia. And there was a lot of different programs that were going on in San Antonio. And I started out at Home Court America, did some coaching on base at Lackland. I've been around with it long enough, especially with Marcus, when I started with Marcus. And I really love working with the little kids. And I like working with the kids who need most help, right? It's easy to coach talented young kids, but you really show your demeanor when you're working with kids that doesn't have all the physical tools that some of the better athletes do at a younger age.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that. Talk about Home Court America. I talked to Coach Kramer yesterday. I didn't know you were over there. I knew Mo was over there. I knew Marco, but I didn't know you were over there. And we were just talking about different podcasts. He had listened to the previous one, and he said, Ivan was over there, and I had no idea. So talk to us a little bit about Home Court America. I think a lot of people don't know that was the place to be, back in the day.
Right. And Coach Kramer was a mentor of mine when I started at Home Court America. It was an excellent facility. And it did some basic basketball where they taught the kids, the elements of shooting, ball handling, and then some competitive games. Not as competitive as like an AU, but I worked with some phenomenal people over there. People don't really know Coach Mo from Next Level, Tim Springer, Spartan Basketball, Coach Briggs. Man, there's so many people that Coach Marco. We were all over there pretty much at the same time. So when I came in, I wasn't used to this type of organization as far as Home Court America. It was more like, okay, well, I'm just going to volunteer and coach. And when I saw the way Coach Kramer, he trained with Antonio Daniels and a couple of other kids, man, I was really so impressed by what he was doing. So then I'm looking at him like, hey man, I might want to be like him. I'm still military. But I'm looking at what Kramer was doing, and now I see everybody that fell in line at Home Court America, they're doing their own thing now. And it's so great to see, man. I'm one of the older coaches, so I get a chance to learn from a variety of people, man, and just pick up and soak up the knowledge how basketball has changed from when I was growing up playing back in high school in the 80s, and now, to see how basketball has evolved and how dedicated you need to be to excel unless you're one of those super freak athletes and stuff. But yeah, man, Home Court America, man, was definitely my start when I got here. And I coached a little bit at Lackland when Marcus was too young to participate, but they allowed him to participate because he had some unique skills at a younger age and stuff.
Yeah, thanks for touching on that. I'm going to have Mo on later and Briggs separately. And Kramer just said how proud he's of everybody that came out of there. And like you said, everybody kind of doing their own thing and just helping San Antonio basketball. It's grown so much. So it's nice to see that everybody kind of came out of there and still heavily involved in basketball, yourself included. So thanks for sharing that. Lorenzo, just kind of tell everybody how it started for you over at the Future and your background.
I pretty much got involved with coaching as my kids were old enough to start playing. Previously, I never had any intent of being involved in any coaching, but I think the landscape really wasn't the most appealing. As my kids got older and I would go to some of the games, before they even started playing, you look around and you're looking to see who's developing at that age. And I really didn't see too many groups that were developing. I seen a whole bunch of kids playing. So it was really like, rather than complain, I'd rather do it myself. So I dove in, started a team. but I knew about Marcus because they used to go to Smitty's gym, JC and Smitty's gym. And at the time, JC and Smitty were the only two I was familiar with because they would have like open gym and things like that. And I would play ball with them. So from there, I started out bringing my kids over there, just working. And then during COVID, I slid over to SA Future, and since then been rolling.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know you're pretty new to the AAU circuit, but man, you're rocking and rolling with Future. I have my son over there with you guys. He loves it. You guys are great coaches. I love the culture, and we'll get into the culture of Future here in a little bit. The first kind of loaded question, and we've had this on every podcast, and Lorenzo, we'll start with you. You can answer it however you want. Where do you feel San Antonio community is today, maybe from the grassroots level? And you've played here, right? So you've been around the city a long time. I know you're new to coaching, but you're not new to San Antonio. So however you want to answer that, but where do you feel San Antonio is today?
Man, I think it's a weird space. I think we have some talented kids, but I also think there's a large gap of reality and false truth. I'll say that. I think a lot of kids have a ton of potential, but the reality is there's a huge gap as far as us being from top to bottom, being able to compete and relate to the other bigger cities, just in Texas alone. So it's in a weird space, in my personal opinion. You'll have a few groups that can go, but then you have, it's very spotty. Unfortunately, you have to create your own adversity and things to get what you truly want out of it. If you have a long-term vision.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And we'll dive into possible some solutions later, but I appreciate your honesty. Same question for you, Ivan. Where you think we're at today?
Mark, basically, when I look at 98 to right now, man, I think San Antonio basketball has grown a lot. I know when I first got here and I was doing some little traveling with Marcus and his team and stuff, I noticed, San Antonio was behind, right? I don't feel, I know there's more room to grow, but I think when I look at it back in the early thousands and I look at it today, we can put together teams, right, that can go out and compete. And I always said when Marcus and his teams were younger, if you can compete with the teams from Houston and Dallas, you can compete with any team in the United States. And so for me, because I'm older, I think that San Antonio is growing. Right. And it's growing in the right direction. Might not be as fast as some people would want it to be, but I think it is growing and it's moving in the right directions. When I look at teams, whether it's the Toros or whether it's hard work, there's a lot of good programs and there's a lot of good teaching out there that's happening, right? And Future is one of the programs that's leading the way. So I wish Marcus had Future when he was growing up, right? But he didn't. He excelled a little bit later when he was going out at JC's and stuff. But when he was smaller, he had me, and I'm a fundamental guy, right? So the one thing you're going to be able to do is pass, shoot, and dribble, right? And play a little defense. So I think San Antonio is going in the right direction. Like I said before, I'm a little bit older than Coach Lorenzo, so I can see the growth as the kids are getting older and challenging themselves a little bit more. So.
Yep. And that's why I liked having both of you on, because we've got kind of old school and new school. So it's kind of good to hear from both of you in regards to that. So next question I want to talk about, and Cody brought this up, and I 100% agree, and I think a lot of people can agree to this statement, is the importance of the grassroots coach. I mean, like you just said, Ivan, Toros, Hard Work, Raiders, Future, we've got some good high school programs. I don't think anybody is going to say that we don't. And at the high school level, we're producing, high schools are making it to state on the boys and the girls. So I believe San Antonio is in a good space from that level. My concern maybe is the grassroots level. I'm not talking about Future, I'm just talking about in general. There's so many teams playing, so many coaches, a little bit watered down. There's big gaps. Ivan, I'll start with you. Talk to me about how important, because I've seen you guys coach in the gym, the importance, and you said it earlier, you love coaching the kid that, is maybe not that talented. It's the foundation, right, that we're bringing. Talk to me about how important it is for a grassroots coach to know their stuff, to be highly skilled.
Right. I think that's extremely important. And I think when you want to be a coach for the right reason, and when I say the right reason is it doesn't have to be about your kid, right? It's the development of every kid that walks into your program. I think that's extremely important, man, because if you can have that mindset, grassroots, man, you're trying to build everyone up at the same level. We know that some kids are more athletic than others, but when you building kids up, the foundation, man, is so important. And I think a lot of times people want instant stardom for their kid, and they don't want them to make sure that the fundamentals of the game is being developed. Not because they run faster than everyone else, but they need to understand the fundamentals of the game. And if you look at kids in the United States to kids overseas, they're basic basketball players overseas, but they're fundamentally sound. And I think we get accustomed to maybe a highlight video of some kid doing some spin move or crossover or stuff like that, thinking like, okay, well, now my kid can do it. But your kid can't shoot a layup, right? So we have to make sure that each kid is being developed the right way and take away the instant stardom that they want for their kid and just work on their development every single day, right? And it can't be, 2 hours a week with future. It has to be people who are dedicated parents, who are dedicated friends, uncles, aunts, doesn't matter, right? If you want your kid to develop each and every day, you got to put in some work and stay with the basics of the game.
Yep, great answer. I love it. And I think kids and parents are a little different today, and you kind of touched it, but we'll get to that later for sure. So yeah, great stuff. Lorenzo, same question for you.
It's very important because I can honestly say if I go to Future from day one, I probably don't coach because from day one in the gym, it was focus on weaknesses. You got to get better. And I would have been like, here's the keys. Wherever y'all need me to help, I'm helping, So absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is those who are involved, we have to grow as well. So it's easy to say the kids got to get better, but times have changed. How you played in the 80s, the 90s, the training, a lot of things have to continue to evolve. And I think people struggle to grow in that area. Like most grassroots programs, they think, hey, I'm going to start a program, we get some kids. But if you're not growing yourself, how can your program grow? How can the kids get better? So definitely grassroots development from the coaches within matters first before even developing the kid. So if you're not pushing yourself as a coach, a trainer to get better, how can you truly develop the kids?
All right. So next question for you, Lorenzo. Let's talk about the future culture. You guys don't hold tryouts. I've seen the environment. It's not for everybody. Cody talked about the environment or the culture for the high school being a college preparatory program. Awesome. For the grassroots, what's the culture that you guys instill every day with your guys and parents?
I think, honestly, it goes in line with what Cody was saying. You just have you have to have a long-term vision. We might downscale it a little bit, right? Because what they can do at the high school level, the younger ones can't do, but we do some modification of it. Like we have this game called rugby, for example, that the older ones do. The younger ones doing it. We had kindergarten and first graders doing it. And it's just teaching certain passing concepts of being able to move. But ultimately, the culture is at the adversity. We're willing to focus strictly on weaknesses, right? Improve those weaknesses now so they become strength later. So even the mindset of if you win a tournament and you're with Future, like locally, you have to overcome something to win that tournament. Like we're not about to play in tournaments. We know for a fact we're going to win a lot. We're not about to praise a kid who is doing something wrong just because he scored. We rather correct the mistakes now with the perspective of later on, you shooting the layup with the wrong hand, 6'8" kid might send that to the stands. You have to be mentally strong. And I think that's a skill that is abandoned across the board, not just in San Antonio. I think that's worldwide. And that's one of our emphasis is focusing on the kid mental strength early. And it's not for everyone. I think a lot of parents see their kids struggling mentally and they can't handle it,
Yeah, great stuff. Again, I've witnessed it, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You guys are all about development. I mean, that's another thing that you guys are always talking about, long term, which I love, not short term success. You guys are looking out for the future of the kid and the program. So my question for you, Ivan, is let's talk about IQ. What are the best ways young athletes can improve on that aspect?
I think a lot of it boils down to, Mark, is playing and then also watching the game. right? A lot of kids think they can do certain things without literally studying, right? Studying whether it's a high school team or a college team or even a professional team. And that's men and women's, right? You look at situations in, future, they put the kids in situations where they actually have to think, right? And if you watch a little bit more basketball, I love watching basketball, but kids need to understand, and even parents, they need to understand that you have to watch the game to look at situations that your kid or your son or daughter may be put in as they are growing into this game. Because to me, some of the kids out there, some of the better kids, Coach Lorenzo's son, your son, their IQ is above everyone else, and not their physical ability, it's their IQ, where they actually know where somebody should be or where they're going. Right. And where some kids, they struggle to figure that out. They think it's just all about, okay, well, I can dribble the ball 3 times and I can cross over. But then, okay, so what are you going to do after you cross over and beat your defender? Right? Are you going to put him on your hip so he can't get the ball from behind you? It's a mindset that they're being taught at Future that a lot of programs are not doing and stuff. So I think that the mindset of the game, man, and just watching and listening and being receptive to what's being told to you, right? And that means as parents, if you're sitting in the gym watching your son or daughter struggle, then take the time after practice. Hey, this is what he meant by X and Y.
Yep, I agree. Kids need to watch more basketball and not watch the highlights. Lorenzo, you can piggyback on that question, and I do want to talk about both your kids because you guys have smaller guards with extremely high IQ, so we can dive into that. But if you want to touch on anything, Lorenzo, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with what he was saying. I know for me personally, the first thing I don't, my kids rarely watch NBA. They watch college. Just because NBA is more superstars, everyone's standing. College, you got to learn how to move without the ball. There's so many things to do to remain relevant to stay on the court. But also, they also watch their own film and they tell me what could they have done differently. So I used to watch it with them and point out things, but I realized that's how I was viewing it. So now I shut up. I let them watch it. We may watch it together and I say, what do you see here? And they'll tell me. And then I may point out things like, or you may want to consider X, Y, and Z. So I don't really point out things anymore when we watch film. It's more of them telling me, because for me to know and bring out the best version of them, I have to understand how they think. And kids think differently. I got 3 of them. I reached out to Mr. Keene several times, like, you train Marcus, you train Trey. Does it drive you crazy when they play different or they interpret different things? And I got 4 boys, and 3 of them are literally a year apart. So it's like, and it drives me nuts. But being able to, and it goes back to Future culture as well, being able to rely on these coaches like Cody. We're in Dallas. My kids are getting on my nerves, are struggling. Like, I want to choke them. Have you ever felt like that? And they share their thoughts. Or I reach out to D like, man, his attitude is, hey, I went through it with Kingston. This is how I handle it. This is how I would have done differently. So all that becomes full circle. So the IQ, it's very important earlier, but it's also what they're watching. A lot of kids are watching highlights, so they spend more of the time trying to perform somebody to fall, and then everyone's oohing on, but you're down 40. Like, how are we celebrating that, but you're down 40? But then the parents make a little Instagram clip of that, and it's like, y'all just missed this whole game, and that's the one part you took out. Meanwhile, your son, like, for example, this was his first tournament, and his intelligence on the court allowed him to add value, right? He may not have scored a lot. He made the right reads. He was jumping passing lanes. That's all IQ stuff, and that's a testament to what y'all do, in your household.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate you touching on that. I mean, the last podcast, we had Mike Clarkson, Jordan in the NBA, Deja, possibly WNBA player, and they said the same things. Like you said, Lorenzo, I may watch film with Jordan, ask him what he sees instead of me telling him. You do that with your kids at a young age, and then Deja breaking down film. So these are formulas for pro athletes you guys are doing with your younger athletes. And to your point, it's the culture of your preparatory program. And I love what you said about all you guys reaching out to each other within your organization. That's huge. like just helping each other. That's what it's all about, right? So that's really good culture that you guys do that. Next question for you guys. I know you guys are going to love this one. Zone versus man. And I was fortunate to watch a lot of basketball games this weekend in Houston, pretty much all sixth grade and below. And I would say 75% was zone. And I'm tearing my hair out watching this. I don't understand it. So let's talk about it. All right. So Lorenzo, we'll start with you because you probably see it more than I do. I just saw it one weekend. We know man principles should be more important first prior to zone. So why are we seeing so much of it at the youth level? I know future, you guys may run a little bit of zone, but it's like 1-3-1 or trapping. It's teaching out of it. It's just not sitting in the 2-3 zone and everybody guarding space. That's a problem with grassroots basketball. So let's talk about zone versus man, anything you want to talk about, but it needs to change. And let's just talk from a San Antonio level. You seeing a lot here as well?
Yeah, I think that's a loaded question because I think you can get a variety of different reasons. One, you can say business. For some, the more they win, it attracts the parents who really don't get it because they want to be part of something that's winning short term as far as, hey, we won a trophy. So a team in first and second grade sitting in the zone, most kids can't pass and shoot that far. So if you have one or two kids that know how to play and you sit in the zone, you're going to win everything. I kind of started in zone, like before I came to Future, not knowing, like just trying to figure everything out. But when I first started, I was like, we got to get out of zone. When I came to Future, they're like, we don't even introduce zone at the younger age. And so it was like perfect. And you lose kids. You lose some kids who parents are like, my kids struggle to move mobility wise, right? And so they're like, we got to go somewhere else where we can sit in a zone. I personally hate zone at the younger ages. I think once you get to middle school, introducing it as a wrinkle helps, especially from a strategy like you come out of timeout, you can throw a zone trap or things like that. But to sit primarily in zone is crazy to me. When you talk to high school coaches, and the first thing they say is kids don't know how to defend. Like I reach out to some of the high school coaches I know on the girls and men's side, and they all say kids do not know how to defend. And you go look at the programs they've been involved in, majority are sitting in zone. And so it's funny to me because in Europe, most kids are playing man. So it's like we're imitating the wrong things, and they're imitating the right things. But if you look at the professionals, they're saying majority of the league is now starting to become European, right? So you have your Americans, but most of the people who are keeping the jobs are more of the Europeans. So it's a funny concept now that we're leaning more towards short-term satisfaction where they're taking a long-term approach. But if the end goal is one day to have the opportunity to play professionally and the NBA is making that transition from Americans to Europeans, shouldn't we be doing the same thing they're doing?
Yeah, you would think so. I'm from Europe. I didn't know what 2-3 zone was till I got here. I'm not sounding naive. I really didn't. I was like, okay, I think we ran a 1-3-1 back home in England, if I remember, but all the leagues were no zone anyway. I mean, just what it was. You just played man, and it was not a lot of pressing either. So I think that's a development piece. I see a lot of teams just press in first, second grade. If you got a physical, fast team, it's really hard to get even past half court, right? So
I do hate.
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's funny though that even when you play up, the older teams will sit in the zone. It's crazy to me because a couple of weeks ago, I think I sent you a message like the 5th grade team was playing 7th and 8th graders, played 4 games, and 90% of the time, everybody we played was sitting in zone. Meanwhile, we played 94 feet all man. So it's like,
And I've talked to tournament directors about no zone. They're not going to do it. I'll do it. I don't care. Like it's our league up here, our factory league, which is very recreational. It's like maybe a step up from CYO or right around the same. We don't allow any zone. It's just for development, right? It's not about winning. It's all about development for me. And these kids eventually, some of the better ones are going to have to go play AAU and get to play middle school basketball. Got to teach them young. So yeah, Ivan, you want to add anything to that? I don't know if it was different back in 1998.
Right. Mark, even when I had, before I joined the Future program, my little teams always played man to man. And my whole thought process when I used to tell my teams about playing man to man, because to me, if you play man to man correctly, it's kind of like a zone, kind of sort of, but it's man principles, right? My objective when they were little was to get them to high school, get them high school ready when they were 7 and 8 years old. And just playing man to man and playing disciplined man to man, it was like the best thing for the kids to understand. And when you have a less talented team, you got to start thinking about angles, right? If you know somebody's quicker than you can't be all up on them, right? You got to play him at an angle. Which way do I want him to go? And now we're thinking like, okay, I got man to man, and then you teach it box out. Right? You got to box out. You got to be able to be tough enough to box out your own man. So that's the one thing I always loved about man to man. It's like, okay, you line up five, I'm going to line up five. We playing man to man. I don't care what you do, but this is how we're going to play.
Yep. I love it. I hope we get back to more man to man. I'm tired of seeing zone, so we'll see. Hopefully these tournament runners can make some changes in San Antonio. I'm all for it. All right, so let's talk about kids and parents, right? I want to start with this, Ivan. I didn't put this in the outline, but it just came to me. So let's talk about Trey, right? Love that kid. I've had the opportunity to work with him. I can tell you that he starts for any team in the city, and I'll take that even last year, right? I stay true to that. That kid is special. Great shooter, great IQ kid, just great kid. You decided to keep him at Brennan High School, the best top team in Texas, right? So I can tell you, I don't know many parents that would do that. Many parents would be like, man, this Brennan is loaded. I probably need to move my son so he can go start and play somewhere else, right? Let's just be real. And you didn't. You stayed the course. And I respect you so much for doing that. And I got to watch him play at the tournament over here. Man, that kid's game is just continues to elevate, right? So I want to just ask you straight up. I respect you. I think you have no problem answering this question, and it's good for parents to hear this, right? There's a lot of transfer portals in high school. Let's be real; they're moving all over the place. Why did you decide not to go that route and keep Trey at a program where you probably knew that his junior year last year that he wasn't going to play a lot, but had to get some reps on JV, and here we are senior year, and now he's still fighting for minutes, right? Let's be real. So
right.
Talk to me about that.
For me, Mark, I learned a long time ago, my days of playing are far beyond me. So when we went into the discussion, like when he was in the 9th grade, right, it was like, okay, well, you see what's in front of you, right? You got dogs in front of you, right, that can go. And he said, Dad, I want to stay here. So I was like, okay, so we're going to train, whether it's me training you or I asked with Tim or you, Mark, I got him the training to make sure he at least can be competitive. And he wanted to stay, at Brennan because, and I'm more proud of him that staying at Brennan because you're right. He could have we could have transferred, but I said, no, if this is what you want, then this is what we're going to do. We're going to train, and then you just have to be ready when your opportunity comes, right? And it's easy to move, but I always tell him, I tell my kids, sports is not going to be the hardest thing that you ever do in life. Right. And so mentally, he knows, right? He knows he has to work extremely hard every single day, right? To get whatever minutes that he gets. Right. And for me, it's like, okay, just be the best teammate you can be. Right. You control what you can control. Right. That means you're going out, busting your butt every day at practice. But, like I said, it's easy, Mark. It's easier now because he is a senior and he wrote it. He knew what was in front of him, and he still stood the course, man. So I'm extremely proud of him, man. It's heartfelt. A lot of kids like, no, this is what he wants to do. I said, you might not get your glorification as a senior, not your minutes or whatever, but your glorification is coming, whether it's 2 years or 3 years from down the line. And it might not be in basketball. It could be something else in life. But he showed that he had the stick-to-itiveness to stay and fight. And that's what I'm proud of. So I think he's going to be an excellent father one day as well, because he can explain this to his son. It's easy to pack and run, right? It's just easy to do it, right? A lot of people do it. They get upset. They don't like the playing time. They don't like this or that. I'm like, okay, you're not always going to just be able to up and go, right? You're going to have to stick it out. And you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight for everything that you want in this life. So nothing is going to be given to you. But just got to continue to work, man. So I'm extremely proud of him, Mark, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Very rare, but what a great culture you guys have at your family. And That's a lot of respect for Trey for doing that, and I wish him all the success this year. He deserves it. So I appreciate you answering that question. So Lorenzo, let's talk about parents today and kids. You can even kind of relate to when you were growing up, when you were playing. Today, we've had the question answered on some other podcasts. Some believe it's parents have changed. Some believe it's kids. Some believe it's a little bit of both. And we've talked about social media. But what do we see today with the kids that you can talk on your kids that come in your facility, and have they changed, good, bad, just however you want to tackle that?
I think parents underestimate their value. Like, it's easy to say, I pay dues, I'm blaming the organization, but the kids are with the parents majority of the time. To me personally, I feel like uh, the kid's struggles is like holding up a mirror, and parents will keep switching the mirror, thinking it's going to ever look differently. But a lot of the stuff needs to start at home. Like, if a kid isn't listening or he's struggling with something in a sport, I bet you 9 times out of 10, he's struggling with that at home. I think it's more challenging now because most kids, it's mental. And back in the day, I think toughness was described as physical, right? Like, you gotta be able to hit somebody, you gotta be able to hold your own. And now toughness is the more mentally tougher kids are the ones who stand out. Because a lot of kids are skilled these days. Like, we were in Houston. How many kids? There were athletic kids. But one thing I preach in mine is, if you're mentally tough, you're always going to be in the fight. And that's the part parents forget. We want our kids to be successful with the easiest path, the least path of resistance, because it makes us feel good. How many parents are so quick to post a trophy about a kid, about them winning, but their kid may not have played, may not have been in no practices, but they show up at a game? Or a kid scores 20 and they lose, and they're like, well, my kid had 20, but they don't say he shot the ball 40 times. Like, I truly respect Coach Keene's son. Like, that's mental toughness to be like, I know I'm behind 4 to 5 D1 players, but I'm going to keep going at them because all I need is that one opportunity, because everybody knows you can't leave Trey open when he's in the game. Oh, so he's mentally tough, and that's going to take him so much further in life when he walks away from basketball, because he's never been taught to run, but you overcome it. And we're not teaching kids to overcome things. That's why I always say we have a lot of kids who closets look like an NBA jersey swap, because every time something don't go their way, they go from team to team to team, and parents are so quick to blame the organization, but not look in the mirror at themselves. And I think parents have to start looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, how do I get my kid better and do my part? Because they're only with the organization 2 hours, maybe that twice a week. And then if you pay for a trainer, that's only another 90 minutes. And that depends on who's training your kid and how many reps they're getting. So I think parents have to understand their real value is not in just paying for a service, but is in buying into the organization culture and playing a role in developing their own kid as well.
Oh, I totally agree. I think the coaches, and that's the one thing I don't actually miss about coaching. If we lose a game, who they looking at first? Yo, Coach Veer, what happened? Why did we lose? I'm like, okay, we had 40 turnovers. Like, what are we talking about here? You know what I'm saying? Now, my question, do you communicate, Lorenzo, do y'all communicate that with your parents? And the reason I ask is I talked about this on a previous podcast is with my daughter in gymnastics, I'm learning a lot from that space. It's pretty cool. But they have a parent playbook. She's homeschooled. They hand us a playbook and, hey, take this home, read it. Any questions, let us know. I mean, after you read it, there is no questions. It's just very straightforward. Like, okay, expectations from the parent, from the kid, from the coach, from college coaches. Do y'all have some kind of playbook, or is it something that you talk about, communicate, very transparent with your parents, expectations from you as an organization and also your parents?
I don't think we have any like set documents. I know each coach does things differently. Me personally, if a parent asks questions, I'm an open book. I think some parents, you come to realize, like, if you just give out information like without them asking, they kind of take it personal. So I really leave it up to the parent. Like, if there's an issue, come talk. Some just choose to leave without talking, but then you hear it through the grapevine. I'm like, well, that's a communication gap. So we're trying to teach your kid to talk, and here you are, you can't talk, but we don't really have set documents. That might be a good idea. We have thrown that idea out. I know Coach from Warren, Coach Garza, he has a document he sends the parents at the beginning of each season. And I was like, this could be leveraged to send it to across the board of all future grade levels. But I'm really, if you ask questions, I'll give you my best answer. And if I don't know it, I'm going to lean on Coach Keenan. I'm going to call Coach D, Coach Devin. I might even reach out to Devon. He's at Player First because, these paths, there's so many ways to get to the finish line. How everybody handles the struggle is different. So there's, it's good to have resources.
Parents are emotional, man. I've got one, my wife, so be careful. You want to open book. She'll be knocking on your door tomorrow. We just had our first tournament. So, but I'm gonna have some parents on, two really high level parents. One's with your organization, and then one is with Hard Work, and they're also educators. But having them on, I think they may have a playbook that they use, and more parents need to hear that. So they should be on here pretty soon. So thanks for sharing that. All right. So next question. We talked about this a little bit, but future will play not your own age in town. Very similar to what I did with my Admirals back in the day. We'd always play 2 grades up like you guys and compete, but probably lose some. That's probably the goal, right? I'm not trying to go play 2 grades up, and if you win every game, you're probably in the wrong division. And then you go play your own age town. So talk to me about, has that always been with Future? Is that something you came about? And then the pros and cons to doing that?
As far as I know, Mark, that's how it's been since I've been with Future. I'm going to use the 25, 25, and 25 white. Whereas, 25 white is the second tier team. And I know when Trey started, when he ended up getting on 25 white, first year, they played up, right? They played up. Now, we took some whippings, right? And then you can see from his 10th grade year, 11th grade year, 12th grade year-ish, right, that the improvement of now we understand the physicality of the game. I think that's why I like seeing the kids play up if they know they can handle it. But it's an eye-opening experience for sure, because now you're playing against kids that are bigger, faster, stronger. Now you're not the bigger, faster, stronger team, right? So now you got to get used to the IQ come in now. Okay, I'm not faster than the player that's guarding me. So now how can I do angles to take an advantage of what they're doing? So it definitely makes the kids think about what they're doing. I know Coach Smith probably have a little bit more as far as the younger kids. You have to compete no matter who you're playing against. You got to compete. And that's why I like the program, man, because it's teaching the kids, hey, you got to compete. You can't care about whether or not they 2 years older than you or not. You got to compete. And that's what Future looks for. We're going to compete every single minute while we're out here on the court.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely a culture thing with Future. Y'all going to compete against anybody, anywhere. Lorenzo, go ahead and you can tag on it.
You have your regular group and you have your color groups. And then sometimes we mix and match them together, especially locally. Whenever the main groups are together, like your 25s, your 26s. Now for us, it's 32s, your 33s, your 31s. They always play up. A grade or two. I like it because, one, it reveals the weaknesses. Like stuff you can get away with when you're playing your grade, you can't get away with 2 dribbles too late and making that same pass. So that's why I like it. As long as you're competing, that's competing, getting after it, and figuring it out. Those are the real wins. That's going to take you farther when you get older. Yes, it may suck at times. You rarely win a tournament, but you got after it. You win against the kids that were older than you. You figured it out, and then when it does matter, you've hawked down those kids. So now when you square up with those kids in high school, there's no advantage. That whole size, speed, and strength, that's out of the window. Now it's about skill, and you're already proven you were more skilled than them when you were younger. So now you're jumping past them. It takes parents buy-in, though. I give you that, because I've had a group where they went 1-4 playing up every game they was in, and the parents was like, that was worth it. We played 4 games. No, we went 1-3. All the parents afterwards like, man, we lost. We were in every game towards the end. Kids got worn down because of the size, but it taught them, hey, it's teaching the kids, hey, we got to talk more, muscle memory, things like that. And then we go to Houston, play our grade, and it's second nature. They're talking, they're flying after it. And we added different kids that were on the color team with them, and it was not like they missed a beat. So it pays to play up if your kid can hold his own. Definitely. It does no good to play your grade, because I think it gives false confidence. And then when that pressure gets to them and it really matters, that confidence goes away. And if they ain't built for it, it can get hard.
Yeah, I love hearing all these stories. It brings back what I was doing with the Admirals. Everything you said, I can relate to. What I see is that you guys have a plan. Like I can see there's a plan. Everything that you guys, there's some strategy behind it for long-term success. And you even said it was the same what we did with my guys is like, okay, they're 2 years older than you. When you get to high school and you want to play in a freshman or sophomore in high school, you're going to be playing against junior seniors anyway. Let's get used to it now. So that was a long-term plan I have with my guys. You guys are all about it. I love it. Really, really, really good stuff. Next question is how can we get more teams from outside of San Antonio to come here? I know you guys with your tournament, you do, but I know why they come because you go play in their events. Right. So Future Goes plays in a, hey, we got it. And you support each other. Totally get it. I believe a lot of teams don't come in for just your, those type of tournaments because they just don't think it's worth it. Am I off on that one? Ivan, do you feel teams are not coming in because why am I going to spend all that money when I don't feel like it's going to be worth our time? Am I off? That's where I feel it's at.
I've heard that in some tournaments that I attended, and certain teams and came down and slighted San Antonio. And I don't care for it as much, but, I think San Antonio can groom a more cohesive strategy sometimes as far as getting the best kids. I know at Future, right, we have some of the best kids in San Antonio. There's a lot of people who want to keep their kid as the focal point on their team, where if they align with other players and then you go practice, right, you're playing against some of the best in San Antonio and not trying to keep my kid where he gets all the light, right? No, let him play with some other kids, put a couple of all-star teams together and host a tournament and tell those teams from Houston, because I know for a fact we got players here in San Antonio, right? We have a lot of players here. Future has some of the better ones that are here in this particular generation right now. But I haven't heard it before, and that's why I said this earlier, right? If you can compete with the teams from Dallas and Houston, man, you can compete with anybody. But, I think it has to be a better strategy sometimes, some parents, just want their son or daughter to be like the person, right? And they can get on a team or collaborate with a team, put a couple of star players together, man, and I'm telling you right now, compete with any team in the nation. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then so I'm going to get the comment because I talked to Dev Gibson yesterday and I'm going to pull it up. And you can touch on it, Lorenzo. Ready? So it's enough talent in San Antonio at every age group to compete and win nationally, boys and girls. I agree with that statement. What do you think, Lorenzo?
I think first I had a quick thought. The quality of the tournaments matter. And I say that because there's a team out of Oklahoma that one of my groups, we've been hunting. We've never beaten them. We've beaten almost everybody across the nation. We've never beaten them. And they came to San Antonio one time. We didn't even know about it. And he was like, man, we'll never go there again. He's like, we played in a tournament. The teams were horrible. He said, then we ended up having to play. They changed the schedule on some of the games. And then we ended up having to play teams 3 years older. And so the experience was just horrible. But for us, we go to a lot of these tournaments. I never intended them to come to San Antonio. But last year, we played teams out of Louisiana. We went to Vegas. We played teams from Cali. We played teams out of Arizona, Dallas, Houston. And they're like, we tired of y'all coming to our areas, popping us down there. So you kind of like San Antonio, I always say, isn't known for basketball. So it's not really a main attraction. So when you do travel, you're not traveling to have fun and have vacation. And I wonder if some of these organizations, when they do go out there, they're not going with the intent of like, we're competing to make us known versus we're just trying to see what's out there. Like when we go, parents know like, hey, we're going out there. This is a business trip. Kids, get off your electronics. You ain't no swimming. Like we're playing, we're together. You're sitting together. You are trying to compete because you have to bring scouts to San Antonio. Like we don't have that luxury for basketball to be like, stay in San Antonio only. They're going to come here. We don't. And I get a bad rap for saying that from people from San Antonio, but it's the truth. Now to answer your question about with Dev, but I agree. We do. There's a lot of talent in San Antonio if we come together. That's the part. That's a part of parents, like Coach Keene was saying, parents realizing we're better together, which means my kid may not have to be the star. He can be a tremendous asset. And as he gets older, the stars always rise. The cream of the crop always rise. But to become the cream of the crop, you have to have a great gym. Someone that plays in your the league that you were describing, he sent me a text, last name Glosson, and he's like, man, the practices are way harder than the games. He's like, that matters. And he was like, my son progress in this short period of time is leaps and bounds. And he was like, we're not going anywhere. He was like, just being in the practice alone is worth it. And so getting people to understand, like, the practices have to be a struggle. It has to be a dogfight. It has to be competitive. So we do have the talent. We do need to come together, but programs can't be scared to lose kids and lie to parents. And how many times have we seen the tallest kid not know how to dribble? Just stand down low. Hey, and then it's like, hey, we want to come to the future, but my kid's so far behind. It's like, well, the longer you wait,
Yeah, it's going to get worse.
we're behind. And the kid can be a big asset if he just comes and just works. So I think parents have to come together and say, like, just got to work, got to get better. And heck, some of our color teams, like the 25 white, were popping a lot of the main teams here. But parents were willing to be on those teams just to say, my kid is on XYZ main team. So I agree with what Coach Dev was saying.
Yeah, I don't know if Ivan, you may remember this. Remember we had the Gervin team? So they tried it. Coach Mo was over there. I can't remember the other coach. I'll ask Mo when he gets on. But we tried to do this in San Antonio where George Gervin sponsored it. And we tried to get, it was Isaiah Signs, Jake Valero, that group. I think AJ Walker, I believe. It was a really nice group. Man, that thing lasted like 2 weeks. The goal was, right, here was the goal. And it was a good goal. It was basically, all right, you can stay with your AAU team. So let's just say we want to take the top 10 kids for one grade in San Antonio, a mix from the future and wherever else. That's from five different AAU teams. We just need you for these 3-4 tournaments. One could be in Vegas, one could be in Dallas, whatever it is, right? You pick these national events, and that's all we need you for. We're not trying to steal your kid. We just want to put San Antonio on the map. They lasted one tournament, and it was done right. But then it just came down to whom? The parents were like, nah, I ain't doing this, right? Because maybe they came off the bench. They didn't understand their role. The role was for San Antonio, not for your kid. So I'd love to get back to that. I was behind it. I tried my best to send kids there. I was a little bit involved, not from the coaching aspect. I think it can happen, but it's egos. And then you've got to find the right people to do it. It's got to be the right coach, right organization, credibility and all that stuff. So that entered my mind. That was when those guys were in 7th grade. So it was a long time ago. I'll make sure to bring that up with Coach Mo so he can maybe add a little more light to how that went down. And another thing that was funny is when you said the culture, Lorenzo, there's a lot of programs out there that will go on vacations for tournaments. It drives me crazy. Let's go to Myrtle Beach. Okay, the tournament's terrible. Well, will we spend 3 days on the beach? Like, man, I wish San Antonio would get back to that. What I used to do with my Admirals is like, hey, we're playing in these 4 tournaments in the summer. You figure out your vacations around these tournaments. We're not going on vacation in these tournaments. I need you for these 4. Now you can plan your vacations wherever you want to go. I'm with you, man. It's a business. These are business trips for these kids. Yes, it's not all about winning and losing, but if you're all in, you got to be all in. So the culture is big for that, and you guys definitely have that. So great stuff. Last question before we get in some Q&As. Solutions. What are some solutions that you feel can get grassroots basketball? I do think it's in a good space, and I think Future's doing a great job. I think some other programs are, but what do you feel we need to improve on, some solutions to get us continuing or maybe get there a little quicker, catching up to we always talk about catching up to Houston and Dallas. Lorenzo, what do you think?
I think tournament-wise, I like to give Mike credit, Mike Daniels. I like to help with the transition to middle school and high school. He's went to quarters, like the 5 fouls. So he's working on implement some of those things. I think from a Turdy standpoint, they have to find a happy medium from making money and having great quality tournaments. Like, there's tournaments every weekend, and it's like, that's too much. Financially, it has to be too much on some of these parents. Quality, it can't be that good all the time, because the parents who get it know my kid don't need to play as much, every weekend. I think also taking time to listen to, I think Bella Fleming, she has her Journey podcast, and they're talking to parents who kids have done it or doing it, learning from them versus acting like we know everything. Learning from their stories allows us to then figure out how to maneuver and come together, or to get even our kids better. It's maybe potentially, could we have a seminar for grassroots where we get parents who kids are playing in these tournaments and help them with the transition? Because everybody now is talking about brand. And it's like your kid is in 5th grade, 4th grade. Like I've lost kids that said Future does not have social media presence for the younger kid. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like a 5th grade, 6th grader worrying about their social media presence. Maybe can we have seminars to really start educating these parents on paths of what worked, what didn't work, what could they have done differently to help bring basketball together? And then just being open and honest. I think there's a lot of people who say things right to your face, but move in a foul way behind the scenes. And that causes issues as well. So I think in this, if it's really about the kids, let's keep it about the kids. Let's try to uplift and put every kid in the best position possible that they're willing to work for. Not parents are willing to buy themselves or trying to give, or like that they're willing to overcome and work for. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Ivan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Coach Smith on pretty much everything he said. And the one thing I would love for parents to understand is as you see your child develop, there is going to be a struggle. You have to understand that, right? As a parent, you have to be willing to sit down with your kid, spend some extra time outside of the 2 days a week of practice that a kid is getting, and just sit down with your son or daughter and work on some items that they know will help and benefit their game. You know, I see a lot of parents thinking that an hour and a half of future practice twice a week is going to make their kid successful in what their vision of. And that's not true, right? You got to be willing to realize your son or daughter is going to struggle, right? And the struggle is a good thing, though, right? As long as they continue to work, man. But everything Coach Smith said, I agree with him.
Put down the electronics.
Yeah, true.
Put them down, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote them down while you guys are talking. It's funny because every solution we've done, if it's tournament runners, if it's referees, whatever it may be, they're a short list and they're extremely doable. They're not like outrageous things. So we're talking about tournament improvements, which I think you guys listen to the podcast with Mike and Mark. I think Mike's doing a great job. We've probably had most conversations since that podcast has gone live, since I have, I think, in the last probably 2 years. So that's good. Conversations are what we need. Educating parents, 100%. Some kind of seminar or something, parent playbook we talked about, like with gymnastics. Long-term success versus short-term success. Both of you touched on that. Put the electronics down and then open an honest community, and that maybe with coaches and organizations. I mean, it's not that hard, right? It's just everybody's got to come together. So great solutions. I think it can happen. But again, purpose of the podcast is to just educate, bring some light to the city, and hopefully we can do that. All right, we got a couple Q&As and then we'll finish on quick hitters, all right? So you both can answer this one. We'll start with you, Ivan. Most undervalued skill in the game today?
Probably, for me, shooting.
Okay.
I think shooting is, well, I got to touch on IQ, right? The IQ of the game. But then the fundamentals of shooting, I think the kids fall in love with what Steph Curry can do, right? And don't realize the steps he took to get to that point. So IQ, shooting for sure.
Yep, agreed. Lorenzo, anything different?
I'm going to say, because he took mine, but I was initially thinking, I'm going to say heart.
Toughness, right? Yep. I knew you were going to say toughness. Yep.
Got to. Yeah, like yesterday I told the group, your will and discipline got to be stronger than your emotions. Everyone's skilled, but how you feeling today can't determine how much effort you're going to put in.
They're my top three: IQ, shooting, and toughness. I'm not going to pick in which order. I love those. All right, let's do some quick hitters. All right, so we've got like 5 of them. Lorenzo, you can go first, and then you'll go right after. Just don't do what Mike Daniels did. He did a sentence on every one. All right, and I'm gonna, Mike, you can hear it. All right, I just need you to pick one. Make a damn decision on it. All right. So, first one, do you like super pools or you like the tournament style?
Super pools.
Ivan?
Super pool.
Thank you. They both said tournament style. I'm like, what? I'm all about super pools. I'd ask tournament directors. I want to see that team and that team. If we traveling that far, you better put me with somebody I know we're gonna have some good games. All right. Quarters or halves?
Halves.
I like quarters.
I know you do. You said that earlier. You better stay true
quarters.
to that.
Yeah, I like quarters.
I like quarters for like high school and college, but not for AAU stuff. I'm trying to get them games can go on forever if you have stop clock quarters.
But you play less minutes. I don't like the halves because it's running clock and time just run. If at the free throw line, if somebody get fouled by the time they report it, I like quarters give us less minutes and you just play quarters.
Okay. So I'll put it out there, PSA, when I'm going to start doing tournaments here, we got shot clocks. I told you guys about that. We're going to do running clock, but we're going to stop on every free throw because I get you. So there's the compromise. All right. So yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about offense. You like fast break, transition, or half court sets?
Transition.
Okay. I'm a half court guy. Defense, press or half court?
90 feet, man.
I knew it. I saw it all weekend.
Gotta be able to go.
Havoc, baby. Boy. Ivan, you like press or half court defense?
I actually like 3/4 court, but I'm gonna go with half court.
Okay, love it. All right, last one, movies. These are my two favorite basketball movies. So Above the Rim or He Got Game?
He got game. Yeah, I can relate to it.
He got game.
Man, Above the Rim, but that's fine. Those are my top two. All right. Hey, I appreciate you guys answering those and it was some fun. Again, thank you both for coming on and just pouring back into the city. I'm fortunate enough to have my son with you guys. I love what you guys are doing over there. Great teachers. I love everything you talked about. You guys have a plan. You're long term. I think people need to copycat more what the future is doing. I have no problem saying that. And again, the solutions we talked about, pretty simple. I think it can make it happen. So again, thanks for sharing your wealth and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.